One of the telcos that is at the forefront of green network innovation is Orange, which is also a major supporter of industry-wide efforts to improve energy efficiency and the journey towards net zero. Well, joining me now on the programme is Laurent Leboucher, who is Group CTO of Orange and SVP of Orange Innovation Networks. And Laurent is also a board member of the NGMN Alliance. Hello Laurent, it's very good to see you again. Now we've noticed that the interest in green, energy efficient and sustainable networks has increased dramatically in these past 12 months or so. There are far more companies now willing to address the challenges and offer solutions. Have you witnessed the same, and what is the attitude towards green networks from all your partners, suppliers and indeed customers?
Good afternoon, Guy. Yes, this is true that we've been observing such a growing interest recently in the industry and across the whole value chain. For Orange, it's not new because it has been a core priority for already quite a long time, typically with our green IT and network program. However, you're right, we've seen a growing interest, recent interest from the whole value chain ecosystem. Our main vendor partners are also very serious about it, and we have now deep interactions, for instance, on life cycle analysis of the equipment, of the network equipment with the vendor partners. And for customers, we have clearly seen, both from the consumers, but also from the B2B customers, a growing appetite for eco-design product and services. For B2B customers, we are being asked, for instance, to provide a full set of information, full life cycle analysis of the CO2 emission, because we are part of their scope 3. And it means that CO2 modeling, scope 1, 2, and 3, has become a very strong priority for us, especially in my team, for the network impacts.
Well, that is really good to hear. But what about the attitude towards green networks from within the Orange Group? You've mentioned about the scope 3 emissions that are important in your team, but all the way from the board to the product groups, how are things changing within the telco?
Well, green networks is one of the pillars of our core strategic plan, and without disclosing the new strategic roadmap, which will be announced by our CEO in February, I can tell you that green is already a core pillar of our current plan, and it will stay. Historically, we've taken very strong measures on our scope 1 and 2, and typically our direct emission. And we've also taken measures for our scope 3 because it represents roughly 80% of the full CO2 emission, scope 3. Today, I can tell you that I'm working every day with my CSR and energy colleagues, and together with my network teams and with the different CTOs teams in the different countries, we've been running a green network and IT program for several years. And this program is structured according to several axes. First one, the network energy efficiency, which addresses the deployment of energy-saving features on the fixed and the mobile network, but also leveraging also the decommissioning of legacy technologies, and wherever we can, the sharing of infrastructure. Second, we have the metrics deployment and the leveraging of data which is collected from our different probes, and how we can optimize and crunch that data via artificial intelligence to optimize the deployment and the operation and the maintenance of our infrastructure. Third, the technical environment, how we can optimize the technical environment and provide technical blueprints for the data centers, all the technical sites in terms of cooling, energy conversion, and storage, Then we have also the green energy activities, which involve how we can support our different countries in the development of renewable energy sources, such as, for instance, the PPA, the power purchase agreements, but also the solar farms and the solar energy that we use on the different radio sites, and of course the solarization of our data centers. And last but not least, the circular economy, which is more and more important, and which become a very strong requirement for the network equipment. At the beginning of 2022, we included, for instance, a dedicated session in all the RFPs. And now we are also introducing specific scoring within our purchasing process to take into account circularity, life cycle analysis, and it represents a very important part now of our global scoring.
This is terrific news, and you're obviously doing a lot of progressive work over there at Orange, but the move to more efficient, greener networks is industry-wide. How are you involved in helping other telcos and vendors with this major undertaking?
Well, you're right. We are not alone in this sustainability journey. And we work with the whole ecosystem. We work with our suppliers, our customers, our partners. And we have we are a stronger contributor to NGMN, the Green Future Network Project, from the beginning, as you probably know. And we are extremely happy that now we come to the publishing of very useful and actionable recommendation from NGMN to the industry on the telco supply chain sustainability, on the network energy efficiency, on the KPIs and the different methodology to measure, to report, and to act on sustainability. So clearly, it's an industry endeavor. It's a collaboration. It's very important that we solve that as a collective industry effort because it's a huge challenge, and definitely it's not a challenge that we can address everyone on its own alone.
Absolutely, and NGMN is doing some terrific work in this area. And as you mentioned, there are so many challenges here, but if we could perhaps just pick up on a couple of them. First of all, you already mentioned the supply chain. How does a telco get all of its suppliers? Because we're talking hundreds, thousands of different companies. How do they all conform? How do you get them to conform with your targets, such as the Scope 3 work?
It's definitely very important. So we are speaking about supply chain and Scope 3. And by the way, it's a point which is also covered in NGMN's latest publication, the Telco Supply Chain Sustainability, in which we also provided a case study. Orange provided a case study. So, as I said, supply chain and Scope 3 is definitely extremely important. Scope 3 represent roughly 80% of the total emission, CO2 emission. So it includes the purchase of capital goods, so typically our network equipment. And between us, it is not the most important part of Scope 3, although it is still extremely important to reduce it. But the most important part is related to our field operations when they are subcontracted to third parties. And definitely we need to optimize that part. But coming back to the purchase of network equipment, yes, we need to work very closely with our suppliers, both on the supply chain and on the manufacturing. On the manufacturing, we work with, first of all, the main vendors. So we cannot address all the vendors at once. So we start with the main one, the one where we believe we have the strongest impact, CO2 impact, and we work with them in order to understand the full life cycle analysis. And we work also on circularity. First, we need to extend the lifetime of equipment. We have already studied carefully on several equipments whether it's more interesting to extend the lifetime of equipments, network equipments, or to replace them with new, less consuming ones. And guess what? From a CO2 standpoint, extending the lifetime is clearly the way to go. Then we are also promoting the reuse, the reuse of equipment in the same countries or across different countries, or even by through the buying refurbished equipment on the market. And it has impact, and we know that it has impact on the supply chain of our vendor partners, and even in some cases also on the business model. So we need to anticipate, to work with them on that, because it will impact a lot our own Scope 3.
Well, another key issue is data, and specifically what to measure and how to monitor power consumption. In fact, we've got a whole panel discussion coming up today on the Green Network Summit just about this. Do we even have industry-wide agreement yet on what it is we're measuring, and do we have the tools to help us do it?
Measuring and getting good, accurate, and actionable data is of the essence. It's how we know where we are and where we need to go on our journey, sustainability journey. And NGMN has identified metering as a key issue going forward, and also recommended that the standardized metering should be developed within a generic unified architecture. And within Orange, we are working also with NGMN and with our partner to assess how it can be done and how to make it work where needed with the different standard organization to create and to evolve the different industry standards. Also, within Orange, at the same time, we are building and deploying an energy management information system. The main purpose is to collect in a very reliable way and also as fast as possible our power consumption, but also to crunch all that data in order to optimize the consumption. And we already have achieved significant savings. For instance, comparing and using big data, comparing different sites, radio sites configuration, and how we can identify, in some cases, abnormal behaviors.
And how do we set ourselves targets to meet our green network goals? Because you spoke earlier about extending the lifetime for existing products, but when it comes to purchasing new infrastructure and services, I would imagine a consumer style Energy Star rating would be way too simplistic for telecoms. Do we yet have a solution?
Well, to some extent, yes. You have to look at the whole end-to-end picture. At the end of the day, what is important is the CO2 emission. So the key is to have a good end-to-end CO2 model, Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. The most difficult one is Scope 3. A few years ago, we used to do it with macroeconomic monetary estimations, but it is very rough, it's very approximate. We tend now to replace it by much more detailed physical models, which are based on real physical units. For instance, for field intervention, we look at the number of intervention, and this is really the units on which we are working. But we also need to work with our supplier to ensure that we have the right information from them. And practically, that means that we use sourcing criteria checklist, and we leverage the one which are developed by NGMN in the Telco Supply Chain Sustainability publication. But at the other end of the value chain, it also means that with our customers, we provide the tools and data that they also need to support their own sustainability journey. Because as I said before, we are part of their Scope 3. So we need to provide this tool and this level of detailed information.
And a final question for you, Laurent. What can we do ourselves as telcos? Can we use our own technology, our own innovation and skills to help with this journey towards the green network?
Guy, that's an excellent point. As an industry, I think we've managed to build already very sophisticated network management system, which address quality, which address performance, and also charging. And what we need to do now is to address energy and CO2 impact and directly within our OSS systems. That's what we need to do, and I think it should be feasible because we have already proved that we can do it for other purposes, and that should be the target of the industry. I believe there is room for collaboration between organizations like NGMN, but also TM Forum, working together in order to address that journey.
Well, absolutely, and let's hope so. Laurent, thank you so much for joining us on the Green Network Summit and sharing your views on this vitally important area.
You're welcome, Guy.